What's going on? Welcome in. The Matt Bernier Show here on DRF TV, live.drf.com, livestream.com, the Daily Racing Forums Twitter handle. That would be at DRF Inside Post, as well as the Daily Racing Forums Facebook page. My name is Matt Bernier. You can follow me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. This is the preview edition of the Matt Bernier Show, taking a look at some big races coming up this Saturday, March the 31st, getting you ready. Again, we just continue to get closer and closer to the first Saturday in May, the Kentucky Derby. But before we get there, we got to find out who's actually going to run in the race, and we'll go quite a ways to figuring out some of the main players or key contenders as far as Saturday is concerned leading into the Kentucky Derby. If you listen to the show podcast version, YouTube, iTunes, SoundCloud, video.drf.com. If you're checking it out over on YouTube, click that subscribe button. Subscribe to the Daily Racing Forums channel. You get all the latest videos that we have. And again, those are also available over on video.drf.com. The way that we'll rip through this show here today, we'll go over 4 races, 2 of them from Gulfstream, 2 of them from Dubai. It's a big day out there at Meydan Racecourse. You'll have the Dubai World Cup that we'll go over. We'll also go over a race that probably, outside of the World Cup, has the most local hometown kind of feel for us here in the United States anyway. The Dubai Golden Shaheen 6-furlong sprint on the main track. We'll dive into that one as well. You can find some other races, including the UAE Derby. That will be on the latest edition of Out of the Gate, which we'll talk about again at the end of the show. We always lead into that as well. And then down at Gulfstream Park, we'll talk about one of the undercard races, a stakes race to Sanibel Island. But let's kick it off right at the top. But the Grade 1 Florida Derby, 3-year-olds, 1 1/8 miles on the main track. There are 100 Kentucky Derby points that go to the winner. There are 40 that go to the runner-up, and there are 20 that go to the third-place finisher. So this is certainly a major, major race and a key race leading in to the Kentucky Derby. The winner, you're in. The runner-up, more likely than not, you're in. The third-place finisher is where things can get a little bit on the dicey side, because some of these horses, this is really a major, major race simply because, if for no other reason, it's the marquee event down at Gulfstream Park for their entire championship meeting. But there's a real scenario where 1 or 2 of these main players that we've all been looking at as far as true Derby contenders are concerned, if they don't run in the top 2, there's a chance that they don't even get into the starting gate at Churchill Downs. So this is a giant, giant race, a race that all these connections have been waiting for. They've had it circled for months. And we'll find out if they're ready to go and if they're going to fire their best shot. Let's dive into this field. If you're new to this show, on the far right side of the screen, if you're watching the visuals anyway, that's my value line. It's not a morning line. And for those of you that are listening, I'll go through right in post position order, tell you what I think would be fair value and fair numbers as far as win odds are concerned on each one of these runners, and a little reason why. Let's start off down on the inside. Strike Power from Mark Henning. I've made him 8-1. I don't think there's any world in which he goes off at 8-1. I think he goes off less than that. He really hasn't done anything wrong. 2 for 3 lifetime, 3 for 3 in the exacta. Ran a good second behind Promises Fulfilled last time out. The buyers are there. He makes a lot of sense. He's very, very green still. I don't think he knows what he's doing. And as a lot of people have made mention, there is just a part of me that thinks he's going to be better suited going 1 turn and going shorter. Made him 8-1. The number 2, Millionaire Runner. Not going to spend much time here. 99-1. The number 3, Tip Sheet. I think Tip Sheet's actually a decent little horse. I just think he's way over his head. 99-1. The 4 is Promises Fulfilled. The winner of the Fountain of Youth, the sort of local lead into this race after the first race of their entire sort of Gulfstream Championship meet. You had the Holy Bull, which leads into the Fountain of Youth, which leads into the Florida Derby. Promises Fulfilled went off at 18-1 that day for Dale Romans. Got out there, a good aggressive ride from Arad Ortiz, backed the pace down, and had enough left in the tank down the lane. Thought it was a good effort. He's going to need to work out something similar here, this time beneath Robbie Alvarado. But the good news is, if you like this horse, there doesn't really seem like there's a ton of pace signed on here either, maybe with the exception of Strike Power down to the inside. I think Promises Fulfilled is a good horse. I want him to prove to me that that last run is actually indicative of what he's capable of doing, and I know it's a very, very small sample size, but Dale Romans, past 5 years, winner last out, second after the layoff in graded stakes races, 0 for 11, and only 4 of them have hit the board. I made Promises Fulfilled 8-1 right there with Strike Power. If you can tell, I'm making a decision about the Fountain of Youth. I'm going to fade it. The number 5 is Storm Runner, another horse coming out of that Fountain of Youth. A lot of people, I think he could be a little bit of a wise guy horse. He had to steady a little bit going into the backside. Joel Rosario was trying to make what could have been a very, very key move in the race, trying to go up the inside. It didn't work. I thought it was a beautiful job by Arad to kind of, I don't want to say sucker him into the hole, but kind of lure him in there and then shut the door. This horse lost its momentum. The problem I had with that is he still had a heck of a lot of time to rebound, and he was just, there was nothing there when the real running started. He's won. If he beats me, so be it. I won't have him. 13-1. The number 6 is Catholic Boy. Catholic Boy on last week's edition out of the gate, I have him as technically my number 1 horse as far as the Kentucky Derby is concerned. I thought the Sam F. Davis was a good race, not a great race. I think it was one that you can build on, and if you like this horse, you have to view him in that light. You have to look at that and say that the Sam F. Davis was nothing more than a starting off point to get to this point, and then from here get you to Kentucky, to get you to the Churchill Downs racetrack and the Kentucky Derby itself. I can understand anyone that says you've got to go by Flame Away with a full head of steam. You kind of hung. I thought the main track favored speed that day. I thought he did a fair amount of running. I know he was a little bit closer to the pace than maybe he's accustomed to being. I think he's going to be 2 or 3 lengths out of it this time around. He should have every opportunity if good enough. Also worth noting, Irad Ortiz, who rode promises fulfilled the victory in the Fountain of Youth, hops off, lands on Catholic Boy. I made him 3-1. The number 7 is Hofburg. Hofburg, to me, is one of the more interesting runners in this race. I made him 6-1. I'm sure a lot of people are going to look at that and say that's insane because on Figs, he's not nearly fast enough. This is nothing more than an upside play for me, and I believe there's some talent here to this horse. That most recent run, the maiden special weight, that was his first start as a 3-year-old. His first start's in Saratoga. He's only started twice in his entire career. And the fact that Bill Mott and Judd Mott and everyone involved, Jose Ortiz with the mount, the fact that they're going to go from a maiden win up to a grade 1 race where I think many people would look at this and say one of the better preps that we'll have leading into the Kentucky Derby, I think it speaks volumes. Mott usually is very, very conservative. If he thinks that this is a horse that has the ability, or at least has shown that maybe he has the kind of class that can pass this sort of test a lot in a short amount of time, I think that speaks volumes. This horse has got a beautiful pedigree. I believe he's a half or a full to Emollient, who we know what she was capable of doing when she was out on the turf course. That's where she did most of her damage, but she was good really on anything. I think Hofburg's really interesting. I made him 6-1. The number 8 is Audible. He was the winner of the Holy Bull, and that was his most recent start, but that was all the way back in February. This is a very typical Todd Pletcher move. Give him time, space out these races. The 99 buyer, highest last out in the field. Wouldn't be surprised at all if this horse got the job done. He was a little bit unprofessional, though. He was very early with the lead change on the far turn, and then late, just before the wire, he popped back to his left lead. I don't know. There's a part of me that looks at him and says, he could be anything. He could be a superstar. He could be, he could be the best 3-year-old that we have in this generation. There's also a part of me that looks at it and says, if you strip the 99 from his PPs, you've got a nice horse. And then even when you look at the 99, the way that he did it out on the racetrack, I didn't love that. And that Holy Bull hasn't come back particularly strong. I know Entice came back to win next out with a 95 up in the Gotham at Aqueduct, but that was in a 1-turn mile. I kind of feel like that's what he wants to do. The runner-up, Free Drop Billy, was terrible at Aqueduct, but at the same time, I don't think that's what he wants to do, a 1-turn mile. So I don't want to hold that race against Free Drop Billy, but the fact that Enticed is really the only one that's come back to do any real running, I don't know what to do with the Holy Bull. I don't love it as an entire sort of race. I think the top 2 are still good. I know a lot of people have given up on Free Drop Billy, but I kind of feel like Audible, I have to be honest, to me, I wouldn't be surprised if he won or if he was off the board. I could go either way with him. I made him 3-1. I respect the connections. He has the fig. He likes the racetrack. We'll find out if Audible can get the job done and win the Florida Derby. And the outside runner is Mississippi for Mark Cassie. Blinkers go on for the first time. I thought he ran okay in that most recent start on February the 4th. He's been gone for some time. He comes back here in this spot, obviously 2 back. He was tooth and nail all the way down to the wire with Noble Indy. We know that Noble Indy came back to win the Louisiana Derby. Storm Runner was kind of the buzz horse leading into that most recent run, the Fountain of Youth, and they were only separated by a neck. So Mississippi, I can understand anyone that wants to make a case for him. I still don't know if ultimately he wants to go this far and if he's quite this good, to be frank. So there it is, the entire field in a nutshell. Let's get to the pick and play in here for this year's Florida Derby for myself. I like Hofburg in here. I don't really love the 2 Florida local preps leading into the Florida Derby. The Holy Bull, I can go either way on it. I just want to be against the Fountain of Youth. If those horses do well, I will lose. I won't have any of them really covered as far as the Rainbow Six is concerned. That's going to be the payoff leg. The way that I'm looking at this race, I'm saying if I can't get through with one of 3 horses, if I can't get through with Hofburg, Catholic Boy, or Audible, because those are the 3 choices in my sort of top 3 right there, 7, 6, and 8, I'm just not going to have anything. Now, I'm also going to use strike power as well a little bit, but he's going to be nothing more than an underneath kind of horse because, again, I'm not entirely sure how far he wants to go. I just think with Hofburg, there are enough interesting pieces in a race where I don't necessarily love any of the other horses that are going to take the lion's share of the money, and I think his upside, his potential is tremendous. We'll find out. He's going to need to run a heck of a lot faster, no question about that. But my pick in here is Hofburg, and how I'm going to play this race, I'll play $20 to win it. Again, these denominations, they're nothing more than placeholders. Play within your budget, and if you play for 10 times this, God bless you. If you play for 1% of this, whatever it may be. If you play $2 to win, good on you. Hofburg for me, $20 to win, and I will also back it up with my favorite little saver bets here. I'll use the other two horses that I think are the logical contenders, Catholic Boy and Audible. I will use them on top, and I will use Hofburg in second and $10 exactas. So for me, the Florida Derby, I like Hofburg, and just in case, we'll play him to win $20, and then with the exactas, I'll use Catholic Boy and Audible on top, and I will use Hofburg underneath, $10 exactas there. But really should be a fun race. We'll find out. A lot to be determined, and a lot of questions will be answered Saturday afternoon down at Gulfstream Park as far as the 3-year-olds are concerned, leading on to Churchill Downs. Let's go out to Meydan Racecourse for the big one on Dubai World Cup night. It's the Dubai World Cup. It's a giant race. $10 million is the purse. You've got a nice full field in here. You can go a couple different ways, but there is one horse that's going to take a world of beating in here, and it's obviously West Coast for Bob Baffert. But let's go right in post position order. The number 1 is Awar D. He's a horse that has run in these sort of races in the past. Last year in the Dubai World Cup, finished 5th. His recent form leaves something to be desired, 99-1. The number 2 is North America. This is a horse that most recently won the Al Maktoum Challenge Round 3, which was a Group 1 race over there. 2 starts back, he ran second behind Thundersnow by a neck. The difference in the 2 races, 5 1/4 length victory over Thundersnow most recently, a neck defeat to Thundersnow 2 starts back. The racetrack at Meydan on March the 10th was an absolute highway. An absolute highway. One of the most intensely speed-friendly racetracks I can remember in recent memory. Not that the run 2 starts back was over a strip that wasn't speed-friendly. I think there's always been a speed bias, particularly at Meydan. You go through and look at some of these recent races over the past 2, 3, 4 weeks. Speed does very well on this main track, so something to just factor into your handicapping. You want to talk about an absolute freeway. That's what you had in that most recent run, and I think that was the difference. Now, the question is, you got to make a decision, and you'll at least have the entirety of the day leading up to this race to see what the racetrack is doing. Me, right now, I'm going with the notion or the thought that it's going to be kind of speed. I know Bob Baffert mentioned something about the track, the workers fluffing up the racetrack, and now it's a bit of a deeper sandy surface. I don't know what the heck that means. I'm just going to look at it and say, based on what has been the normal situation or the normal circumstances over the past month, that's what I'm going to assume the racetrack is, and that's why I'm saying that North America, I'm making him 5-1. Number 3, Gunnevera. I made him 24-1 for Antonio Sano. A combination of that closing running style. He's had a bit of a hoof issue, apparently, it sounds like. They're going to try to get him into the race. If it doesn't work, obviously disappointed to go over there and have it not pan out, but at the same time, I got to be honest with you. Even if he runs, if he's got a bad hoof and he's running on a speed-friendly track, I want no part of him. 24-1. The number 4, Furia Cruzada, another horse that ran in that Al Maktoum Round 3 challenge. A situation where, again, running style, I just don't think this horse is quite as good as some of the better contenders in here, 99-1. Moob Tahij. We know that he likes the racetrack over at Meydan. He's 7 of 10 lifetime in the exacta. He's 4 for 10 overall. I think he is what he is. If he wins the race, okay, fine. I think it's kind of an indictment on everyone else. We know what Moob Tahij is. Nice horse, shows up with his run. I think the most interesting thing is going to be to see where Victor Espinoza positions him during the course of the running, because there's not a ton of early speed in here. I would like to see them be aggressive with him, because if he's forward, sure, I think all of a sudden his chances do increase dramatically. We'll find out. I made him 13-1. The number 6 is a Forever Unbridled, the lone mare in the field. We know what she's capable of on her best day. She won the Breeders' Cup Distaff last year. She's very, very talented. She's in great hands with Dallas Stewart. I just look at her and say, not necessarily from a buyer standpoint, because I think her buyers are a little bit on the lower side than they probably should be. From a time form standpoint, she's close, but she's not quite there in that sort of mid-120 range at her best. I think you're probably going to get that. I don't know if it's good enough to win, particularly with her running style. Made her 13-1. The number 7 is Talismanic. Talismanic, you need to make a decision. Do you think he's going to be able to replicate his best form from turf and even that little prep race up at Chantilly most recently over the synthetic? Can he transfer that over to the dirt? Now, the pedigree would suggest probably not going to be an issue. Andre Fabre Clearly, it's been well documented. He knows how to get horses to run their best on the biggest stages, even horses that have never run on dirt before. You don't have to go back too far. I mean, well, now it is kind of a long time ago, but Arkong, back in, I believe it was the 93 Breeders' Cup Classic, the greatest and largest upset in the history of the Breeders' Cup. Talismanic, I think, has a puncher's chance, but there's a part of me that looks at it and wonders, is he going to be, I don't want to say the underlay of the race, but is he just, by default, the alternative to West Coast? And that enough is, for me, I made him 6-1. I think you have to use him if you're playing any sort of an exotic wager. But at the same time, I'm just kind of going to be against him. Whether that's going to be a kiss of death or not, we'll find out. I respect him, but I'm going to be against him because I think he might be a little bit of an underlay again. I made him 6-1. The number is Pavel. Pavel is a horse that I've loved. I think there is some serious talent here. I just wonder where he is overall right now, quality standpoint and form standpoint. The San Pasquale, well-documented, disastrous trip, disastrous ride. 2 back in the Malibu, 7/8, too short form. Also thought he was on the worst part of the racetrack for the majority of the run. 3 starts back to Classic, unmitigated disaster. Probably too much too soon for him. I thought the Jockey Club Gold Cup was a very, very good effort, and I thought his Smarty Jones was tremendous. If he can run one of those 2 races, I think he's going to hit the board. I just don't know if one of those 2 races is good enough to necessarily win this race. The good news is he's still so lightly raced that if you think he can improve on either one of those, all of a sudden you're looking at a serious, serious chance in here. Made him 13-1. The number 9 is West Coast. West Coast for Bob Baffert. He is going to be a heavy favorite. He's 4-5 on the morning line. I made him 5-2, and I understand that may be a little bit on the tentative side, but I want him to prove that this is what he is. Now, I said after the Pegasus World Cup that he's going to be a monster in 2018. I stand by that. I think if he runs that Pegasus, he's going to win this race. I don't think anybody can run anything close to that. But you're shipping him across country, across the world. You're running him off of a layoff since we haven't seen him since the end of January. It's a good 2 months now. And, you know, this is going to be arguably the best field that he's ever faced. I suppose you can include that Breeders' Cup Classic last year and even the Pegasus. He's running a gun runner on 2 different occasions. But I just wonder, is he going to take a step forward? Is he going to appreciate going this sort of trip? Is he going to appreciate the ship all the way around the world? And again, strictly from a value standpoint, there's going to be nil. He's going to be probably in the American pools, I would guess, 1-5. 2-5, somewhere in there. And to me, that's just entirely too short. I made him 5-2. Most likely winner by far. Made him 5-2, though, too short. And the number 10 is Thunder Snow. Thought long and hard about Thunder Snow in this spot. Made him 6-1. For the reasons I talked about with North America. Most recently, he had no chance over that racetrack trying to come up from that. I also thought 2 starts back when it was a little bit more of a speed-friendly track. I thought Inside also did well. He was neither of those, but he still came and got North America, when it was all said and done. If the racetrack plays closer to what it did 2 starts back in the Al Maktoum Challenge Round 2 than in the Al Maktoum Challenge Round 3, I think he has a big chance. If it plays more similarly to the Al Maktoum Round 3, then I think he's just up against it. That outside post combined with the speed, I just think there would be too much for him to overcome. If you get that run and that track 2 starts back, I think he's got a big chance in here. Made him 6-1. Let's get to the pick and the play situation here. Again, I've made it clear I am banking on, and this is being recorded on Thursday. I'm banking on the track playing the way that it has for the entirety of the meeting, the main track anyway. Speed has done very, very well. Some days, unbelievably well. If it does very well again, there's not a ton of early confirmed gas in here. I think North America is going to be urged and sent out of there early on. I think they get to the front, and I think they just say, come and catch me. I'm going to go with North America here in the Dubai World Cup. We'll find out. Now, again, the beautiful thing about this is you're going to have the entire card to go and sit back and try to make some sort of changes. If all of a sudden the track is much fairer and things seem to be on the up and up as far as you'll be able to make up ground on the outside, the inside speed does well, but also coming from off the pace, then you know what? Then I don't really think North America has any real edge. If this track plays the way that it has recently, I'll take my chances with North America on the front end down to the inside. He's speed nearest the rail. Just send him out of there and try to take him as far as they can. As far as the play is concerned, I said I'm not going to go with the play right now simply because I want to see what the track is doing, if things are changing. If all of a sudden it is much fairer, then America I'm going to kind of throttle back on a little bit. But I think as is right now, we'll just leave it as looking at it, how the track has played recently. I'll go with North America, the number 2 horse, speed nearest the rail to win the Dubai World Cup. Race 6 out at Meydan on Saturday morning, depending on where you're watching the races, is the Dubai Golden Shaheen. 6 furlongs on the main track. You're going to have a number of North American entrants in here. Let's take a look at the field. You've got a field of 9 signed on, and you have the reigning champion, defending champion of this race, down to the inside, the number 1, Mind Your Biscuits. I made him 8-1 simply because I don't know where he is form-wise. I didn't like that return effort. I know it was nothing more than a prep, but then they punted on another spot just to train him up to here. There's just I don't love the way that he's coming into this, and also combine that with the way the racetrack is playing. He's a pass for me. The number 2 is XY Jet for Jorge Navarro. This is a horse that was only beaten a neck in this race in 2016. Got hurt missed basically the majority of 2017. Came back at the very end just before New Year's, and he's really hasn't skipped a beat, hasn't missed a beat. He just comes back and he's running giant race after giant race. Big speed. Think he might be controlling speed. We'll be interested. We'll talk about another runner in here momentarily. I made him 2-1. The number 3, Ronaldo the Wizard, the old boy. He's 12 years old. He still shows up and runs respectable races. He's certainly lost something on the fastball, but I think he's okay. Made him 24-1. The number 4 is Wild Dude, one of our old friends. We know him here in the States. He used to be a graded stakes winner, a grade 1 winner out on the West Coast. Safe to say he has seen better days. I don't see any scenario where he gets the job done here unless... Look, crazier things have happened. It's horse racing. I don't like his chances, 49-1. The number 5 is Matera Sky. This is a horse, again, coming from Japan, running in lesser races, doing it nicely over the past 2 races, won by 5 and a little more than a length. But in the grand scheme of things, this horse has never shown that he can run with this type of animal, with our type of sprinters that we're shipping over there, 49-1. The number 6 is Roy H. He's one of my favorites. For Peter Miller, I think this horse has got an unbelievable amount of talent. He can go, he can sit, he can do a number of things. From a figure standpoint, he is the horse to beat, strictly the horse to beat. 4-5 on the morning line. I made him 9-5 simply because I do wonder how this racetrack's going to play, and if it still maintains that speed friendliness. It's not like you're running down cheap speed in XY Jet. You'd have to run down a good one, and even if you want to go to the outside with Jordan Sport, we'll talk about momentarily, there is some quality in here, possibly anyway. And Roy H. would have to adapt to that. I made him 9-5, think he's the most likely winner, but I think he's going to get bet really, really heavily in here. Shalong, 49-1. There's some whispers that he may or may not go in here. To me, it doesn't make a difference. Don't think he's good enough. The number 8 is My Catch. This is a horse for Doug Watson. If you just look at the recent form, that last race had no chance. 2 starts back, defeated Ronaldo the Wizard, was a graded stakes winner out there. Again, I just don't think his best is good enough to run with our best, what we're sending over there. And the number 9 is Jordan Sport. Jordan Sport, I made 9-1, and I'm sorry, My Catch 49-1. Jordan Sport, I made 9-1. Jordan Sport made his first career start on dirt most recently in that Group 3, and he won by the length of the stretch. Now, the problem with that is that was the day that I spoke about when talking about North America and Thunder Snow, where it was one of the most intensely speed-friendly tracks I can remember in recent memory. He went out there and just absolutely dusted the field. He won by over 7 lengths. Got a very, very strong Timeform US rating, or a Timeform rating at this point with a 123. If you think that there's a scenario where the track plays to that again, and he's going to be able to get out there and do that again, then yeah, he has a big chance. My concern, or my sort of thing that I would throw into play is, even if you think it's a very speed-friendly racetrack, he's never seen speed like XY Jet, and I think that's the difference in here. That outside draw, he's going to have to sit, because XY Jet, I think, is clearly the speed of the speed, and that leads us into the pick and the play for me in the Dubai Golden Shaheen. I think from a pick standpoint, as much as it pains me to go against Roy H., I'm going to go with XY Jet. Speed nearest the rail, not a lot of other speed in this race. If the track continues to be speed-friendly, and I sound like a broken record, I'm sure, but boy, if it's playing anything like it has been, if XY Jet got the run on the track that Jordan Sport got the run on back on March the 10th, I think he would have won by 15. I just think XY Jet's a better horse than Jordan Sport is. We'll find out, but I think he could possibly offer some value XY Jet in here. Again, I made him 2-1. As far as the play is concerned, I think this is clearly a Rockingham Ranch double, or an exacta, I should say, where you've got XY Jet and you've got Roy H. I think they're the 2 best horses in the race. No disrespect to Mind Your Biscuits. I just think he's going to be up against it from a pace standpoint and from a racetrack standpoint. I think it's 2-6 all the way. But I want to just, in case Roy H. is just a superior animal, I'll back it up. So I'll play $25 exacta box with the 2 XY Jet and the number 6 Roy H. Come in either way. We'll cash on this one. It won't make you rich because that's going to be the overwhelming favorite as far as the exactas are concerned. But at the end of the day, I just wonder if the dynamics of this race favor XY Jet slightly more than they do Roy H. I think Roy H is a better horse, but I wonder if Saturday is the day, for XY Jet to get the job done. I'll go with XY Jet in the Golden Shaheen out at Meydan. Now, perhaps this race at Gulfstream Park isn't going to get the kind of pub that some of the other graded stakes races are going to get, but I kind of feel like the 5th is an interesting race to take a look at. These are 3-year-old fillies going a mile on the turf. This is the field for the Sanibel Island, $150,000 of the purse, right in post position order. The one is Amertume for Todd Pletcher. I liked her last time in the Here Comes the Bride. Thought she ran okay, not great. The fact that she finished second, I think, is an indictment on everyone else because it looked like she was beat on the far turn, but she does have a big chance in here. Made her 3-1. The number 2 is Figueroa's Queen for Gustavo Delgado. This is a horse I like the way that she kicked away from that field in gate-to-wire fashion, most recently on February the 25th. The problem is slow fractions that she set early on, and that kind of enabled her to kick the way that she did. Having said that, she might get a similar trip this time around because it doesn't look like there's a ton of pace signed on here. I think she has a puncher's chance. Made her 9-1. The number 3 is Originator for Ian Wilkes. This is a horse, the career debut I thought was really, really impressive. Actually, let's take a look at the career debut right now. This was going 5/8 of a mile back on January the 14th. 28-1 that day for good reason. Ian Wilkes never wins first out, but this horse, you see, had to alter out, kind of change the leads, but I don't think that was because she was green. I think it was just more a matter of needed to get out over heels, finished like a freight train. Then after that race, they shipped to Tampa Bay Downs and run a non-winners of one other than. Unfortunately for her, the way the race was run, not a ton of pace. That turf course at Tampa Bay Downs has been speed-friendly the entire meeting. And the winner that day, I think, is actually okay. Jehozakat, who was a full sister to Divining Rod, she was eased in the stakes race on Tampa Bay Derby Day. But at the same time, I think this is an okay horse, Jehozakat, as well as Originator. I made Originator 7-2 for Ian Wilkes. The number 4 is Takami Linda for Tom Albertrani. Finished very well, determined down the lane. Wonder if she's going to appreciate more distance. Leperoux has the mount 13-1. The number 5 is Got Stormy for Mark Cassie. Broke the maiden most recently. Good figs, 80 buyer, 97 time form US rating. Think this horse fits in here well. Could work out another good trip. Made her 12-1. Ferdinanda, 32-1 for Barkley Tag. Rad Ortiz Jr. going to need to step it up on both buyer and time form scales. The number 7 is Unstable in the Morning, named after me. A horse that just, plain and simple, not fast enough to win this race. Going to need some just astronomical improvement that is unforeseeable. Probably could have made the horse 99-1, but I made 49-1. And the outside runner is the horse they're all going to need to beat. That's the number 8, best performance for Christophe Clement. Jose Ortiz has them out. I liked this horse. I picked her in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Fillies. I think it was a matter of, had she not gotten shuffled on the far turn the way that she did, she was in amongst horses. If she hadn't gotten shuffled back, I wonder if she threatens for the win. Maybe she doesn't get there, but she's only 3/4 beaten as is. She came with a serious late run, thought everything was very, very good about it. The knock against her is 6 lifetime starts, 5 times second with only 1 victory. Is she a little bit of a seconditis kind of horse, or is it just a matter of she's been facing better horses? No, she faced significant form 2 back, and then clearly she ran in a rushing fall most recently. That was in the Breeders' Cup. So I think she's got a big chance in here, but I think she's going to be overbet. I made her 3-1 in a race that I think you can go a number of ways. That leads us to the pick and the play. I was very taken by Originator after that debut that we already took a look at. I thought she ran well enough in that Tampa Bay race, and I think it's a positive that they come right back and throw her into stakes company here in her 3rd lifetime start. Made her 7-2. I think I'm going to get the 7-2. I'll play $20 to win on the number 3 Originator, and then just in case she runs well but not well enough, I'm going to play $10 saver exactas with the 1, the 2, and the 8. The 1 is Amertume. The 8 is best performance. The wild card in here for me is the 2, Figueroa's Queen, because if there's no other speed and she takes a step forward, you get Luis Saez, there's a real scenario where she could wire this field and do something very similar to what she did last time and be a good number at that. So that could be an interesting exacta should it come in 2-3. But $20 to win for me on the number 3 Originator in the Sanibel Island, and I'll back it up with some saver exactas, the 1, the 2, and the 8 over the 3, all of those $10 each. The 5th race on Florida Derby Day at Gulfstream Park, the Sanibel Island. If you've been watching this live and listening to it live, thank you for doing so. You've got livestream.com, you've got live.drf.com, and you've got the Daily Racing Form social media pages. That's at DRF Inside Post, as well as the Daily Racing Form's Facebook page. If you check this out, podcast form, like most of you do. YouTube, iTunes, video.drf.com, as well as SoundCloud. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can follow me and you can get at me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. We will have all sorts of good things lined up for you on DRF Live on Saturday because the action starts early. Very early on the East Coast, even earlier on the West Coast, because it's a big day of racing out at Dubai, out at Meydan. Culminates with the Dubai World Cup. Should go off right around 1 o'clock on the East Coast, and that'll time things very, very nicely because then you'll be getting ready to go into stakes action here in the States down at Gulfstream. And again, a full day culminating with the Grade 1 Florida Derby. We'll find out who goes on to Churchill Downs for the first Saturday in May. We'll find out because guess what? That also includes racing that's going on over in Dubai. You've got the UAE Derby. You've also got the European Road to the Derby, which could end up having Gronkowski get enough points to come on over here. So a lot of things are going to be happening on this coming Saturday. And then next Saturday is the big one where you've got the Santa Anita Derby, the Wood Memorial, as well as the Bluegrass from Keeneland. So things are really starting to shape up. We will have all of this action for this weekend. Gulfstream, Dubai, some other things mixed in on the recap edition of the Matt Bernier Show. That will be up on Tuesday at noon Eastern, and that's usually following the DRF Players Podcast with Peter Thomas Fornatale and Jonathan Kinchin. If you've been listening to this live on Friday, you've already listened to the Players Podcast. Those boys kick it off at 11. We do this show, the preview edition of the Matt Bernier Show, at noon, and then, as always, we lead in to the latest edition of Out of the Gate. We'll talk Dubai World Cup. We'll talk Florida Derby. We'll talk UAE Derby, and we'll give you some best bets, and you'll also get all sorts of good things from other contributors all throughout the daily racing form. So best of luck this weekend. However you're playing, whatever you're playing, wherever you're playing. We'll chat again on Tuesday with the recap edition of the Matt Bernier Show. Dive into some of these races. Talk soon.